From Murphy to Manio, building resilient communities is our mission. This is Masters of Disaster. Welcome to Masters of Disaster. I'm Justin Graney with North Carolina Emergency Management. This episode is sponsored by the North Carolina Flood Inundation Mapping and Alert Network. Get access to over 600 flood gauges across the state that you can monitor in real time just like the pros. Get alerts to your cell phone and much more. Visit fiman.nc.gov. Today I'm joined by the state of North Carolina's Hazard Mitigation Chief, Steve McGugan. Steve, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate being here.
So hazard mitigation, that has been a topic since Helene and through other storms, but of late we've heard about the hazard mitigation program, the hazard mitigation grant program. Tell us a little bit about what that program is and where are your focus areas. What does that mean to North Carolinians?
The hazard mitigation program, of course, is sponsored by FEMA. They provide the funds for the grants that come through the program. The intent of the program is to mitigate for future disasters. Take what happened in this one, what can we correct now so that it doesn't happen in the future. The majority of the program focuses around homeowners and being able to mitigate homeowners being flooded in the future. Whether it's riverine or ocean flooding, we try to mitigate that home, whether it's through buying them out or acquisition, elevating the home, or if the home cannot be elevated due to too much damage, we can do a mitigation reconstruction. Those are the three primary homeowner programs. The program also will do infrastructure projects such as a backup generator for critical facilities. It can do flood walls around critical facilities to prevent them from flooding. It can do some other projects that will prevent flooding. It takes a little bit more to get them approved, but we work through all of them to be able to try to mitigate future events.
Well, I mean, I think we know that future events are going to be an issue. I mean, disasters aren't going anywhere. No. So I think anytime we can build resilient communities, right, and that means if we're able to move people out of flood-prone areas or elevate their homes or build more resilient, hardened infrastructure in communities, I mean, I think everyone benefits from those decisions. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, they're going to benefit, again, first, you're not having to have responders go out and try to save folks. You have folks that aren't going to be impacted by flooding that keep having very high dollar value events happen to them that they can't pay for. And that's what the acquisitions and elevations are for. And then we also are looking at what can we do for the communities at large by being able to do these infrastructure projects that will hopefully further prevent damages to homes and government businesses.
And North Carolina is no stranger to this program. And we've talked many times. I mean, I think that North Carolina has learned a ton from previous disasters and how to implement this program, how to shape it, how to streamline it, cut as much red tape as we can to make it as functional as we can. But hazard mitigation's not a recovery program, right? It doesn't move at the same speed as traditional recovery programs.
That's correct. I mean, recovery in itself, public assistance, it's getting your utilities, your infrastructure, roadways, cleaning up debris. That goes first. Hazard mitigation, again, is a building program, so it takes a lot more government review to be able to make sure we're meeting all the law requirements before a project is authorized.
And those government reviews are typically done by the federal government, right? I mean, these are federally led grant programs.
That's correct. I mean, all of the laws that don't apply during an emergency situation, and again, hazard mitigation is after the emergency, and so it must follow all of the laws during the non-event time frame. So that means that I have to meet the same construction requirements as any other federal construction project. We have to go through and show that it is benefit-cost ratio, meets the benefit-cost ratio the government directs, which is greater than 1. So there's a lot more that has to be done to get a project ready for FEMA approval as well as getting FEMA's approval.
And how has North Carolina, perfected our process to move those decision points even faster with like the communities in mind?
Well, I think what folks should first realize is that North Carolina is only behind one state when it comes to dollar value storms, and that's the state of Florida. So Basically, especially when you call the southeast region and what we look at, North Carolina is the number 2 state that does mitigation. Florida normally gets more dollars based upon them being struck more during an event. But at the same token, North Carolina does a lot more than Florida does. Florida does not have the homeowner program that we do. They look more at infrastructure, where we do a lot more homeowners. In terms of perfecting our program, we have worked hand in hand with FEMA to be able to streamline as many processes as we can, so that FEMA has already basically, at the regional level, has already approved our projects by the time we submit them. It is very quick review through region, and then it must go through the other federal reviews that it must go through at headquarters FEMA, as well as through the Department of Homeland Security, through the Congressional and OSB, or OMB, Office of Management and Budget Review.
Okay. And so after Helene now, I know your team was on the ground shortly after the storm left North Carolina, helping, homeowners to understand these programs and to start receiving applications. We've heard the term state-centric. What does that mean?
State-centric is what we developed as a state. The way the program is normally managed is that the state is the recipient of the money. Mm-hmm. We then provide the reimbursements to the local governments who are supposed to carry out the work of doing whatever the project is that is approved. That meant that the local governments had to expend the funds, pay for all of the work, then they could come back to the state, get reimbursed, and we would reimburse them. The issue is that most local governments, especially in many of our eastern and low-income counties, they could go very slowly because they would have to do like one house, then come back and get reimbursed before they could start the contract on the next house and work the next.
Majority of our counties are rural, right?
That's right.
They don't have the cash flow to maybe sustain something this big.
And so when you look at it, the projects that get approved, when you're talking $14-15 million for an acquisition project of 30 homes, it could take that county upwards of 8 years to do it. The period of performance we have for the grant, that means the time that we have to execute the grant, is 4 years. So a lot of homes were not getting serviced by their own communities when we started this.
Because of the burden on the local governments.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then, so what we did is we came up with a way as the state that we grew hazard mitigation to be able to deliver this effort. The state now does the contracting because we can contract in bulk. Whereas, again, the counties normally did house by house. We do all 30 houses at one time. All 30 houses are basically done. It's done cheaper because now I have one surveyor go out and do all 30 homes in one time. Does all 30 homes for their appraisals. So, again, I'm doing it in bulk. I get a reduced cost as the state. We pay for the acquisitions. The counties never have to spend a dime. We just take it as the state. We pay for it. Then we do the pull down from the federal government, reimburse ourselves. And then at the end, we close it out. So it's much less burden on the counties. The counties aren't having to spend local funds. We have the money to be able to do it as the state because of how we set up after a disaster, and the legislature provides us the funding to be able to do the recovery work. And so we can pay out of that and then repay back the state through the reimbursements.
Did we model this after someone, or?
No, this was something that we created.
So North Carolina was the first in the nation
Yes, sir.
to execute this.
That's correct.
And I like that the vision there was to reduce the workload and the burden on our local governments who are often in those situations recovering themselves.
That's correct.
Right? And they have to serve everyone, not just the properties that are in the hazard mitigation program for the future. So that's pretty cool that North Carolina led the way on that. In the current Helene process for hazard mitigation, for the hazard mitigation grant program, how many packages do we? I mean, I know there's been a lot of packages that have been submitted to FEMA at this point in time with a lot of residential properties, right?
Yeah. So please understand that when we talk about what we submit to FEMA, we normally still submit by counties, and the reason we submit by counties is because, again, when we go to contracting, it's easy to contract for a county. And so, and there's also a financial benefit to the county because as the county assists us in doing this, I can also provide funds to the county government to offset what their employees are doing for us. So they get an actual help with their budgets by being able to take money. So by doing it to the counties, when we submit a package to FEMA, it's by county. There will be a number of homes in that package. So I don't submit by each address. The homes are packaged into a large group and then sent to FEMA by county.
It sounds more efficient.
It sounds more efficient. There's also a lot of rules that we get into that makes this more advantageous because, again, you have to look at the homes and the cost of the homes, what it does to do the work. And you have to be able to say, is each home cost efficient? So does the benefit cost ratio equal 1 or greater? When you bulk them like that, I may have homes in there that are less than 1, but I also have homes that are greater than 1. I can average the whole entity of those costs and get the whole project greater than 1. So I can help individuals that may not have been helped if we did it by individual properties. I can help them now because I put them in a big batch and send it up to FEMA.
And that process is just maximizing the FEMA calculator that we have to follow by federal guidelines,
right?
To be able to help as many people as we can.
That's right. So when you look at some of our projects and understand that there is a cost threshold that the Office of Management and Budget sets at the federal level. And so if I'm doing an acquisition or buying a person's home, they have what's called a pre-calculated benefit. If it is at that pre-calculated benefit or less, that home is good. If it is greater than that pre-calculated benefit, then we have to go into the benefit cost analysis tool and we have to build from zero above a benefit that's above the cost of doing that home. So if it costs $300, so the current benefit cost or pre-calculated benefit for a home is $365,000 all in. That's to purchase the home, tear it down, return it to normal, unhook all the utilities, do the appraisals, all the things that go into cost of buying that home. If it is less than $365,000, we're good. If it's greater than $365,000, then we have to go into the BCA tool and build from zero something greater than $365,000 to the cost of that home. So if you look at today's market, there's not many homes that are that cheap. And so we have to go in and build a lot of benefits. It takes an enormous amount of time in front of a computer to figure out how many benefits I can get, because you have to look at how many people live in the home. So if they were saved, here's the cost for saving those people. They're this close to the water, so they could be flooded 4 more times in the next 25 years. It would be this much in damages, and you keep adding all these numbers. So there's a lot to add up. And again, when you have homes now that are running $500,000, $600,000, there's a lot of individual crunching to go. And then again, to be able to pair those homes with homes that are under, that individual BCA for that home may only come to what's called, like 0.5. But if I can put it in with a home that's got a 2, the average is 1.25. And so now I can buy both of those homes. So that's why we go through all this.
So, it sounds like the focus is always on maximizing the benefit for disaster survivors, correct? And to minimize the damages going forward on anything, and to protect their lives going forward. And I think that maybe the federal government set up some of these guidelines, with fiscal responsibility and accountability in mind, and it sounds like we've learned how to work within those processes. Correct. To maximize the benefit for North Carolina. So
right.
Makes me proud as a North Carolinian. We've heard a ton about HMGP though after Helene, and projects not being approved. It's been in the media. We've been questioned a lot about it, and we know that we've submitted a significant amount in a very quick time, and we're working closely with FEMA to get those approved. Tell me a little bit about, what does that approval process look like? FEMA's now reviewed it, which, we're waiting on many of these situations. After they've reviewed it and they approve it, what's the process from there to the home's in the air or we've purchased the property?
Right. So when I say we built the applications or each sub-application for a county, with FEMA. We've done it with the programmatic review. That's looking at a lot of the admin information and the fiscal information. There's also a technical review that has to be done. That's the BCA review. So they have to review the BCA.
The benefit cost analysis.
Yep. Right. I'm sorry. Benefit cost ratio. The other piece is, of course, is an environmental historic protection review. That takes a little bit of time. That's normally a 45 to 60 day review process at FEMA. That's where they have to go through and first, is there any environmental concerns that we're going to have to mitigate when we do this home? Based upon where it's located, they may say we have to test it for asbestos, we have to test it for lead, we may have to test the ground because it was near a service station, so we need to know if there may be leaching in the ground. So they could come back with requirements for us during the mitigation process. You also have to do a historical check on it. So if the home is greater than 45 years old, it has to be determined, is there any historical significance to that home? And then there's also a tribal consultation that has to go through. That's the reason it's 45 days minimum, is because the tribe gets 45 days. The tribal nations get 45 days to review it. But that's where we determine, could there be any impact because it used to be a formal tribal land? Maybe there could be remains there. As we do the grading and seeding, we have to check for artifacts and all that. So all of these reviews take place. That's what takes place at the regional level. Then it goes to headquarters. Headquarters has to do more of the technical check again, as well as they have to review it programmatically. Then once it passes from there, it goes through Department of Homeland Security for Department of Homeland Security sign-off. And then it goes to the Office of Management and Budget in D.C. Again, it's then reviewed again for technical and financial. And then once there, it goes, if it's over $1 million, it has to go to Congress, and it's called a cooling off period, but it basically allows the congressional members to know that this project has been approved so they can alert their constituents that this project's coming. Once that's completed, then it comes back down the chain finally to North Carolina. And that takes normally, once it's released from Congress, anywhere between a week to 2 weeks. And then once it reaches Atlanta, they'll sign us the award letter. That comes in, a couple of hours. And then once it gets to us, then we have to go through a contracting process, get contractors on board, get a final cost from the contractors, and then we can go perform the work.
Well, so two things there. That's great. I appreciate the breakdown there. Two things after Helene that we heard. One of the major disinformation things that was out there was that the government was taking people's land and everything. Yep. Is this a voluntary program, or do we go around and tell people like, hey, we want this property, you need to move?
This program is totally voluntary. Just like when we went out in November and started the intake for all of those interested in doing that. Again, that was a first for this program because it used to be we let the counties build that application and send it to us. The problem with that is what you pointed out earlier, the counties are involved in recovery. Mm-hmm. They don't even think about starting that until 6-7 months later, and the state was getting these applications at 12 months, and by the time you start building the applications, if you look at Florence alone, going back to 2018, we didn't start getting awards from Florence until 2020. By the time it went through came up from the counties, built at the state, submitted, and then reviewed and came back. We had our first application in Helene 4 months after the storm.
Wow.
So Helene, we were in Buncombe County in November. Buncombe County's application was in the 5th of February. The first application. So we started rolling that fast. So one, we went out and we talked to the homeowners on the ground. To your point, it's voluntary. They volunteer for the program. It's voluntary all the way up until the end. They can withdraw at any time at no cost to the survivor. There's never a cost to them. If we go through, we show up, we do the appraisal, we do the survey, we present them the offer. They don't like the offer, it's too low. They can walk away, no cost. Whatever we spent is not a cost to them. They'll never be charged for it. We just walk away, say, okay, thank you. Same for an elevation. Up until the time we put the steel underneath the house and start lifting the house, they can walk away. At that point, it's kind of hard to walk away because now we got the house in the air and we got to finish building the foundation. But It's totally voluntary. They can anytime walk away up until we actually either buy it or start working on it.
So when it comes to acquisition, though, it sounds pretty similar to me selling my house.
That's correct.
There's an appraisal, there's an offer. I either accept the offer or I counter it, and it goes from there. It goes to closing just like normal, right?
That's correct. They do have a chance to counter the offer in terms of if they did think that the appraiser that we bought, that we hired to do the appraisals, if they appraise too low, the homeowner is welcome to go get a appraisal that's at their cost. That's the only cost they would have, but they're welcome to have their own appraiser. If the appraisal that appraiser brings back is within 10% of the cost that our appraiser is, we'll take their appraisal and we'll pay it. If it's higher than 10%, then the state, out of the state's dollars, will pay for a third appraisal, and then we average to 3, and then that's the final offer that's presented. Again, if they walk away at that point, it's no harm, no foul. If they accept it, we continue.
So the final thing I wanted to ask you about today, we've had some media interest surrounding the packages and what's in them, what are the numbers in them, and why are we not sharing those with homeowners? I know we've had conversations about that, but it doesn't sound like, based on the process you just gave me, that when we submit those packages to FEMA for review, those seem like it's high-level estimates at that point using the calculators and the systems that FEMA's put in place for the program, and it's not necessarily an appraisal or an offer for that person, right?
There's no appraisal offer. The numbers that we generate, we try to generate a number that is as great or greater than what we think the appraisal may be. Because, again, we would like FEMA to award it. One, we want to get it approved, but we would like FEMA to award it so we have the funds to be able to cover all contingencies. So we tell all our homeowners that while we come up with a number to put in the application to FEMA, that number is based upon the tax value that's listed on their tax card.
Okay.
So every one of them could go pull that up. If it's $100, and then 9 times out of 10, most appraisals are more than a year or two old by the time we get to them. We're going to go ahead and multiply that by 1.5. That tries to take into account inflation, a market going up, or whatever. So now, a rough guess we're doing is $150 to buy that house. Again, it's a rough guess. Until an appraiser comes in and does the actual appraisal, we don't know. Again, appraisal could be more than $150. If it is, what we do is we run the calculator again, show that we can still purchase this home. Again, we may have some cost savings in the project because some other homes may have saved. I may be able to work money. I can move money around. FEMA allows the state to move the money around within the award over the overall amount. So again, if a home sells for less, I have money quickly, I can fix it. But in worst case, if we have no money left in the original award, I can go back and ask for more because that home was approved. So we work tirelessly to make sure every home that we ask to be approved, that is approved, will finish the program.
Yeah, and I think North Carolina, we have a great history, having worked around your program for a while, with making sure that we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's. We want the most impact in the communities as we can get, right? So
we've mitigated since Floyd almost over 4,000 properties in the state of North Carolina.
That's incredible. 4,000 properties since Floyd. That's incredible. A lot of North Carolinians helped, and I know we're going to continue to try to help more North Carolinians as much as we can.
And that number is acquisitions only.
Okay, so it's even more than with
the elevations and mitigation reconstructions.
Wow. That's incredible. And it makes me proud of the work that you and your team are doing, and thank you. And I know that you're going to continue to push forward, and we'll help as many people as we can.
Sure.
For North Carolina Emergency Management, I'm Justin Graney. Make sure that you're informed, make sure that you've got a disaster kit at home, and make sure you have a plan. Visit readync.gov for more information on how you can be resilient at home.